Hey guys, Preston here, and welcome to my first ever mock draft. This is a one-round mock draft only, pre-combine and pre-free agency, which makes it kind of tough. Like I said, this is my first one, so it's a little rough. It kind of went on the fly. Let me know what you think, what you changed. If maybe one of your teams you think they'd pick elsewhere, let me know. Generally, I don't think every person I picked would do good on the team they're going to. I just don't know. Some people may view that they should have got someone else or went a different direction. I did base it off what I kind of knew, and then if I didn't know a lot about the team, I went off the team needs from what I used the Draft Network's mock draft machine for this mock draft, and they list team needs as well, so I based some of the picks based off those if I didn't know as much about the team. I'd say I have a general idea, but that's about it. So it started, the first pick, the Bengals select, pretty obvious here. They went Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU. There's been some back and forth about will he go, will he won't, but from everything recently, it seems like he's willing to play for him, and I think they said he impressed with their interview, so there's a good chance Joe Burrow is the number one pick. It makes sense. The second pick, debatably the most talented guy, but quarterbacks always get valued more. That is Chase Young to the Washington Redskins. They've been paired together for a while now. Washington's kind of in a point where they can kind of just pick the best guy available, and adding Chase Young to that already pretty good defensive line makes it a scary D-line to think of. They got a future D-core up front of it's like Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Sweat, right? Yeah, it's a pretty scary young D-line they have going over there. Number 3, the Detroit Lions. There's been some talks. Some people have mocked quarterbacks to the Lions. Tua, but just recently Matt Patricia came out and said it's laughable. Obviously, he could be playing it off, but I feel like they could go other ways, and it doesn't seem very Lions-like for them to get Tua. I want to be mad. It kind of makes sense. I could see it happening, but with this mock draft, I played it safe. I had him getting Jeff Okudah, cornerback out of Ohio State, the best corner on the board. Obviously, there's been some Darius Slay trade rumors, and if they don't keep him, getting another young stud corner definitely doesn't hurt. They kind of have needs everywhere as well, really, outside the receiving core. So I decided to go with Jeff Okudah. Isaiah Simmons, who I have going forward to the New York Giants, linebacker from Clemson, also could fit with the Lions. I was kind of struggling who to go with there, but I just thought Simmons would just fits New York, and hopefully they get him. I feel like they'd be kind of dumb not to. I know some people would want him going receiver or maybe even O-line, but Simmons is just a really good player. He's super versatile on a defense that is one of the worst in the NFL at the moment. Plus, they cut 2 linebackers recently, so they need a linebacker, and I think Simmons can plug right in. Like I said, he's diverse. He can play middle. He can play safety. He can fit different places on the field. I think he'd be a great choice for the New York Giants. Number 5, we have Tua going to the Miami Dolphins. If Tua falls to 5, I think Miami would be foolish not to scoop him up. He has injury issues, but they still have Fitzpatrick for another year, so Tua can sit for a year. And, that's probably what they should do. You never know how they'll act it out, but like I said, the Dolphins have acquired a lot of picks over this draft and next year's draft, so hypothetically, they could draft Tua this year, draft other guys to help for the new Tua era, and then next year's draft sign a bunch of rookies that would also help, and then you got 2 solid classes of rookies coming in to help Tua by the time he gets to start next season. I think that's a pretty good idea. Justin Herbert goes to the Chargers at number 6. This is just my guess here. I feel like it's still a very interesting quarterback market. We do know for sure that Phillip Rivers is not coming back to the Chargers. We just don't know where he'll end up. We don't know where Tom Brady's going to go yet. Teddy Bridgewater, like I said, this is one of the more interesting free agent classes in a long time. So I just kind of guessed here and have the Chargers reaching maybe slightly, but they needed a quarterback, and they go Justin Herbert. So really, if they believe Herbert can start right away, plug him in. If he can't, he can sit behind Tyrod Taylor for a year. Tyrod's done that for other quarterbacks before, Baker Mayfield. Herbert's a good quarterback. There was talks that if he came out last year, he would have been the top quarterback in the draft. Just obviously, Tua was always going to be above him, and Joe Burrow kind of came out of nowhere. But I think Justin Herbert would do a good job in San Diego. They definitely need to use their other picks on probably like O-linemen, but their receiving core, they have weapons for him. Let's just say that. And number 7, I have the Panthers not going quarterback. I think they said recently they still have faith in Cam Newton, and maybe if he fails, there's still other options out there. So I wasn't really sure what to do with them. And like I said, Burrow, Tua, and Herbert were all off my board by now, so I just had them going. Interior defensive line was one of their top needs, so I had them going Derek Brown, the interior defensive lineman out of Auburn. Debatably, Some people have Javon Kinlaw above him now after a senior day, but I think Derek Brown's still a stud, and I'll have him going at 7. Number 8, we got the Arizona Cardinals. I feel like offensive line would have made sense here too. I ended up going Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver out of Alabama. And I mean, they have a super offensive-minded coach, and if you have the chance to get a weapon like Jerry Jeudy, it's kind of hard to pass up. You know, Larry Fitzgerald's not getting any younger, that's for sure. He's only getting older, and just having another stud on the outside would be huge, because once Fitzgerald leaves, you have the core of Jeudy, and you'd have a core of Jeudy and Kirk on the outside, with other guys like Akeem Butler and Keshawn Johnson coming up on the outside too, and you play Andy Isabella in the slot. I think that's a pretty good future receiving core. Like I said, their coach is pretty offensive-minded. Offensive line makes sense too, so I guess either way with that, but I went Jerry Jeudy with this. The Jaguars were also pretty interesting. I could have given them someone like Javon Kinlaw or something like that. I think they've had him going interior defensive line a lot. I had him going with CeeDee Lamb here just because CeeDee Lamb's an immense talent at wide receiver, and they kind of screwed themselves in the cap situation when it comes to getting a quarterback. So I think they can try just to load up some skill positions for whatever quarterback they end up running out next season, either Nick Foles or I'm forgetting names today, Gardner Minshew. So give them a stud like that. That'll help greatly, I think. And then the Browns, I have a pretty safe pick. This is one that just makes a lot of sense. The Browns need offensive line help, so I'm going Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle. I guess you can rank offensive tackles differently, but Wills was the top one on this board, and I think he's a pretty solid prospect, so I have the Browns solidifying their O-line. And number 11, we have Makai Becton, offensive tackle out of Louisville, going to the Jets. The top receivers were kind of off the board already. The Jets could go receiver, especially if they don't resign Robbie Anderson, but I feel like protecting Sam Darnold should be top priority. It's usually what I think with young quarterbacks, so technically, like I said, it could have made sense with the Cardinals too, but in this case, I kind of had it where the Cardinals went receiver and the Jets went offensive line. You could swap those potentially. 12, I have the Raiders going Henry Ruggs III, wide receiver. Receiver is definitely one of the top needs of the Oakland Raiders. I mean, they do have kind of holes everywhere, but getting a solid receiving option for whoever they have quarterbacking them next year, they're another interesting situation. They're going to get Tom Brady. They stick with Derek Carr. Who knows? But they'll have an extra weapon because obviously Antonio Brown leaving left a void. So Henry Ruggs would be a solid option for them. Next, continuing to run on wide receivers, I have the Colts not drafting a quarterback this time. It's yet again, I'm kind of guessing that the Colts get someone in free agency instead of the draft. They could draft a guy like Jordan Love or something like that. But like I said, there's a lot of free agent quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers has already been rumored to the Colts. I don't think that's who they should go with, but they have a lot of cap space. They can get a guy like a Teddy Bridgewater if they really want to. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But if in this case I have them getting a free agent quarterback or just sticking with Brissett, and they'll go Laviska Shenault Jr., wide receiver out of Colorado. Solid wide receiver prospect. I think he's been overshadowed a bit by some of the other guys, but he's still a first-round capable wide receiver, in my opinion. At number 14, I have the Buccaneers going with Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State. Jordan Love is an interesting prospect because I've seen it where he's higher on draft boards and lower. Like, he's a very polarizing player. In this case, I'm kind of just guessing that Tampa's pretty high on him. At the very least, they have to try something at the quarterback position. If they can't get a free agent they're in love with, or maybe they can only get a veteran guy, Jordan Love will be the future, and maybe a guy like Phillip Rivers or something like that would be the bridge player. So we'll see how that goes. I think Jordan Love is solid, though. He has potential. It's hard to be worse than, as long as he throws less than 30 interceptions, it'd probably be, Bucs fans probably won't be too mad. So at 15, I have the Denver Broncos going Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle. Their offensive line does need beefed up. I'm aware they have other holes, but Tristan Wirfs was just kind of sitting there, and he's a very solid prospect if you ask me. He could have gone wide receiver potentially, but I kind of like, Sutton's coming into his own. They could definitely use a wide receiver, but a lot of those guys are off the board already, so I'm going offensive tackle here. With the Falcons at number 16. By the way, when I look off from the camera, it's because I'm looking at the computer where I made the mock draft, just so you're aware. I have the Falcons getting A.J. Epineza, edge player out of Iowa. Some people have Kavon Chason from LSU above him. I still think Epineza is probably a slightly better prospect, so I have him going to the Atlanta Falcons, who obviously they abandoned their recent their semi-recent first-round draft choice, Vic Beasley, after he had the one solid year, but he kind of fell off since then. So I have them going Epinesa, a good edge player. They have other options too. Like I said, they have a lot of holes too, just outside of the receiving core, basically. But I have them going Epinesa here. At number 17, I have Javon Kinlaw falling to the Cowboys. Interior defensive line has been a pretty big thing for the Cowboys. I mean, obviously, things can change, especially, if they lose a guy like Amari Cooper, hypothetically, maybe Byron Jones. They could pick guys like Christian Fulton, or maybe reach for a quarterback or a wide receiver. Justin Jefferson would be a good choice. But if they keep them, which I kind of think will happen, I have Javon Kinlaw going to the Dallas Cowboys. Sorry. I got Colin Coward on. He has his predictions with a bunch of quarterback stuff. It's a weird, pretty far out guess. This just shows how crazy this quarterback class is at the moment. And then with the Dolphins, another Dolphins pick at 18, which is the Steelers' original pick, I believe. I have them going offensive tackle Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. Tua, even if he doesn't start this year, he'll need an offensive line to protect him whenever he does get the play, so you might as well go with one of the best offensive tackles left. Andrew Thomas is a very solid prospect and should help shore up this Dolphins offensive line that has struggled as of late. Tua is fairly injury prone. That's obviously his biggest weakness, but if you can get him some protection, hopefully that will go a long way. With the the Raiders' extra first round pick, I have them going cornerback Christian Fulton, so they shore up their wide receiver and their cornerback room. Christian Fulton is a very solid prospect. I think he'll do a good job in Oakland. Obviously, they got rid of Gary and Connolly, and they kind of just need help in that corner position as a whole. They're another team with plenty of holes, but Fulton seemed like a good choice for them. At 20, the Jaguars, yet again, they have a lot of holes. I had them shoring up the safety position, going after Grant Delpit. I mean, Delpit's a very solid prospect. Obviously, this is lower than the original mock drafts. He was a top 10 guy. He's still a solid guy and should do well on that Jaguars defense. If Fulton didn't go before, maybe you could see Fulton there, or maybe a guy like C.J. Henderson from Florida. It all kind of depends, but I went with Grant Delpit in this case. Justin Jefferson is going to the Philadelphia Eagles at pick 21 in my mock draft, wide receiver at LSU. They could go corner too, or they could. I had Justin Jefferson actually go before T. Higgins, but you can kind of pick your choice of a guy like T. Higgins or a C.J. Henderson, something like that down the line. Jeff Gladney maybe. But I have them going wide receiver, giving Carson Wentz another weapon. Obviously, Alshon Jeffrey's older and injury prone, and I mean he's basically running with practice squad wide receivers at the end of the year. So I'd go with Justin Jefferson here, shore up that receiving core, or at least add some solid quality depth to it. At 22, I have the Bills going Kavon Chason, edge out of LSU. I saw edge was a top need of the Bills. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a bunch about the Bills. They could have gone T. Higgins. It would have made sense too. But edge is a solid need too, and might as well keep that defense strong, because that's pretty much, the best part about that Bills team. Although getting a taller weapon for Josh Allen makes sense too. The Patriots have a bit of a reach here, tight end. Obviously, they've been missing tight end ever since Rob Gronkowski retired, so I have them drafting the best tight end available, in my opinion. Maybe a little early, but they wanted to shore up the position, so I have them getting Cole Kmet, tight end out of Notre Dame. He is a stud. He probably would have been a surefire first-round pick if he stayed another year at Notre Dame, but he came out, and a lot of people have him as the first or second best tight end in the draft, and I have him going to the Patriots here. Solid pick. They could go other ways too, I guess, but I feel like tight end is one of their biggest needs. With the Saints, I have them just loading up. They have Drew Brees for at least one more year. Might as well give them a weapon to work with, and I have them going T. Higgins, wide receiver out of Clemson. They're another team they could go other ways, but I feel like Higgins was still there, and giving T. Higgins and Drew Brees together would be a very fun thing to watch, so I'll go with that. The Minnesota Vikings at 25, I have them going C.J. Henderson, cornerback out of Florida. Xavier Rhodes' play has dropped significantly. He was horrible last year, for just being honest. So getting a corner is pretty important for this Minnesota Vikings team. I have them going with debatably the best corner available still at 25, C.J. Henderson out of Florida. Yeah, it kind of sucks. Rhodes closed is no more. The roads are wide open apparently. So hopefully he can turn it around, but CJ Henderson should help with that position. With 26, the Dolphins third pick in the first round, I'm having them going Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama. Obviously they lost Minka Fitzpatrick, and their safety core in general is kind of weak at the moment, so Xavier McKinney should help greatly with that spot. Draft to replace, I guess, and McKinney's a very solid prospect. He should help with this Dolphins team. And then they could also maybe go with because right afterwards there's a run on edge guys where they could double down on offensive tackles. A lot of options for the Dolphins, but I'm going to Xavier McKinney here. And then at 27, I have Yatir Gross-Matos, the edge player, going to the Seahawks. Edge is a pretty big need for the Seahawks, and we don't know if Clowney will stay or not. Even if he does, another guy would help greatly. And I have him going Gross-Matos out of Penn State, very solid prospect. 28 to the Ravens, I have them also getting an edge player, Terrell Lewis from Alabama. The Ravens love their Alabama players, and edge was listed as a need, and Terrell Lewis fits that mold. So, at 29, I have the Tennessee Titans going interior defensive lineman Neville Gallimore from Oklahoma. Interior defensive lineman was one of the choices. Like I said, I don't know a bunch about Tennessee. They could also have gone with an offensive tackle or something like that. Maybe it depending on who they keep of Derrick Henry and Tannehill, maybe they'd have to reach for a quarterback or draft a running back such as DeAndre Swift. At pick 30, this is more of an interesting one. I drafted a lot of wide receivers before this. They could reach a little bit and go with a Jalen Reagor or something, who is really more of a second-round pick for me. In this case, I saw offensive line was a need, and Josh Jones was still available, so I'm going Josh Jones, offensive tackle. Wide receiver does make sense, but, I mean, if you can buy Rodgers more time, that helps greatly too. So, and then at 31, the 49ers cornerback core kind of got a little exposed against that Kansas City Chiefs team in the Super Bowl. So just adding more young guys to that unit. I mean, Richard Sherman's only getting older, so any help they can get over there is good. So I have them going Jeff Gladney, corner out of TCU. With the Chiefs, I wasn't really sure. Obviously, they're a strong team. They won the Super Bowl. So I kind of had them going for a value pick here. Even if they like their running backs, if you can get a weapon like DeAndre Swift, who's a very, very solid running back, the best one in this draft, it's just huge and help. I mean, it's another weapon for that already solid offense. So I have them going DeAndre Swift, running back out of Georgia. So that's my first round mock draft. I think is pretty decent. There obviously, like I said, there's a couple of different options for teams. I think this draft is super unpredictable, especially with free agency not even starting yet at the moment. There's a lot of shifting pieces this year. This is a good free agent class to keep an eye on because there's a lot of big names. I mean, for example, the Falcons are moving on from Austin Hooper, like confirmed already, basically by Austin Hooper. So, I mean, heck, if the Patriots get him, they won't even draft a tight end. It's an interesting class. Like I said, it'll be fun to see what happens. I do like this draft. I'm a Steelers fan, so I'll probably drop a Steelers mock draft too. Obviously, they didn't have a first-round pick, so they weren't this. So anyone without a first-round pick, later on, like the Bears, I believe, too, I might do a two-round Texans. I might do a two-round mock draft or a second-round only mock draft. We'll have to look and see how this one goes. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think, how you'd grade this draft. If your team drafted a player I gave them, how would you feel? Any minor changes or maybe even huge changes you would make to this mock draft, let me know. Like I said, mock draft 1.0, I think I did pretty good. Like I said, it's kind of tough to predict, especially now. I mean, the combine hasn't even happened yet. Guys will shift up and down after this, too. Well, the combine's semi-started, so. But it's not over yet. All right, guys, thank you for watching. This is KMA Preston signing out. See you guys later.